Hi again then guys, and welcome to the 58th installment of GT Masters, this time again featuring Gran Turismo Sport and one of the newest and most significant new vehicles therein. Now the concept of a Subaru Impreza WRX race car or touring car or rally car is nothing new to Gran Turismo. Gran Turismo has always featured the Impreza very strongly. The rally form is fairly obvious, but also in racing forms as well. We've had numerous racing versions like the Cusco Imprezas in different forms. Of course, the Super Touring Car Impreza, which was, if memory serves, first introduced en masse in Gran Turismo 3, then GT4, 5 and 6, also featured it fairly predominantly. It's a very good touring car, you have the advantage of all-wheel drive, and it's also surprisingly beginner-friendly. It's always a fan favourite as well. Now, where this car differs a little bit from the other Impreza touring cars and race cars which we have had before, is that it's one of the very few Imprezas to have rear-wheel drive instead of all-wheel drive. And we have of course touched on this car before and discussed that aspect of it before in the Rivals match episode between this and also the Group 3 Racing Evo 10 from Mitsubishi. Now both cars are now rear-wheel drive in racing form, they're both all-wheel drive in road form of course, and the road versions are as good as you'd expect them to be, at least stock. They're good. Not necessarily dominant in a straight line, but very good all-rounders, very beginner-friendly, and nice to work with. These racing versions, though, feel substantially different to how Evo and Impreza race cars have felt before, because the Evo and Impreza race cars, and touring cars in particular, have always been very good. Not necessarily the absolute best in the racing class, or even in the touring car class, but definitely very good all-rounders which you can depend on. When you buy one of them, you know exactly what you're going to get. It doesn't really surprise you, it just delivers good performance every single time. This one is a little bit different. Not that it doesn't deliver good performance, but that when you go into driving this car for the first time on GT Sport, be it the beta, or be it at release date, whatever, it's a considerably different experience, a different take on the Impreza. Just like with the Evo having that rear-wheel drive layout, although it's something relatively simple as far as changes go, it makes a big difference. It makes a drastic impact on the car, the way it handles, the way it performs, the manners, the driver feedback, how hard you can push the car, whereas in an all-wheel drive Impreza race car you can pretty much throw it through any corner, and even more so with the rally version. With this, it's the first time that I've really noticed that you can't do that. Not that it's a bad handling car, of course, not at all. In fact, it's not even that tail happy as far as rear-wheel drive race cars go, but you do have to approach driving this in a totally different way to any other Impreza. Likewise with the Evo 10 Group 3 machine. Now, as far as what it actually has to offer, which again we have discussed in that Rivals match, you're looking at an engine power output of 553 horsepower. That's pretty good. It's pretty well placed. It's more powerful than some, not quite as powerful as some others. The torque is also very good. In fact, the torque is a lot higher than many of the other cars in the class at 468 foot-pounds. That's very good. It's not altogether surprising, but it's very good nonetheless. Now, as far as weight, it's not quite as lightweight as you might assume it would be, given that it only has rear-wheel drive instead of all-wheel drive, that Japanese race cars typically have a pretty good weight level. This one isn't amazingly good. It weighs 1,241 kilos, which is about 11 kilos more than, say, a WRC Impreza does on GT6, for instance. But, of course, you're running a lot more power than the WRC car would have unless you upgrade it. Now, the horsepower per tonne is just under 450. It's 446 to be exact. That's pretty good. It's not amazing, but it's good enough, certainly. And I would say that the overall feeling that this Impreza in Group 3 form in particular, more so than the N300 road version, more so by far in fact, is actually very similar to the Evo. And that is that it's very good, and it's very dependable, and it won't really shock you in any particular way. It's a car which delivers what you'd expect it to deliver, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it necessarily has the edge anymore. Now, that is predominantly due to the lack of all-wheel drive. As I mentioned just now, with the other Impreza all-wheel drive versions, be it the Cusco, the touring cars, whatever, you can absolutely fly through corners without ever really needing to worry about grip. In this car though, and with the Evo, you do. Now you don't need to worry too much, you don't need to hold back of course, but you do need to remember that essentially you're not really driving a WRX STI anymore. You're driving what is technically an Impreza, but it's more like an Opel Astra touring car or a Mercedes CLK touring car. It feels much more like those machines now than it ever has before. That's far from being a bad thing, of course, and I would actually say that this feels much more like a DTM style touring car than, say, the Super Touring car does on Gran Turismo 6. That Impreza feels totally unique, even among the touring cars. This feels, as I said, much more, at least to me, like a DTM machine. It's got that wide track, the powerful and torquey rear-wheel drive layout. It's thumpy, but at the same time feels a little bit restrained. It's not a crazy car, and it's reasonably beginner-friendly. As far as fans go, you need to approach the car with a bit of an open mind, of course, because of the all-wheel drive. Some people might not care, but a lot of people value the all-wheel drive on an Impreza, understandably. I'm one of those people, just like you would with an Evo. It would also be strange if you had an Audi Quattro that wasn't Quattro, in effect. It's just part of the package. It comes with the car. It's just what it offers, so not having that takes a little bit of an adjustment period. Once you do, though, it's not necessarily a car that's going to dominate most races. Some cars that I say, or some cars that I talk about, will dominate a lot of events. Your McLaren 650Ss, your BMW M6s, stuff like that. Others have the potential to dominate, but won't necessarily always dominate, like your Alfa Romeo 4Cs, your Aston Martin Vantage GT2s, your Jag F-Types. Then you've got others which tend to be more at the back of the pack. Not that they're slow, but that among the world of cars that are this quick, it's not quite as sharp. And I would put the Impreza and the Evo more so in that category. It definitely has the potential to be a race winner, of course, but it doesn't feel quite as quick as some of the others. It doesn't feel quite as aggressive even, quite as sharp. And that's not necessarily always a bad thing. It makes it a good choice in a similar way to the Alfa 4C for beginners. So overall, if that sounds like it appeals to you, then you'll probably like this car. You've just not got necessarily that incredible all-wheel drive edge that the Imprezas have usually had. But that's it overall for this particular pick. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.